So in this short session, I would like to bring your attention on a relevant topic, the philosophical aspects of yoga. Yoga is actually a way of life. It is not just asana or pranayama alone, as it is commonly assumed nowadays. Philosophically, yoga aims to remove all the sufferings or all the pains and afflictions from this world. But most often common people are only familiar with the asana or pranayama, but these are only two disciplines or two components among the equally important 8 components of the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali. So, to know about yoga in its real sense, we should familiar with the philosophical aspects of yoga mentioned in Yoga Sutra of Patanjali. So, here I would like to focus on the major philosophical doctrines of Yoga Darshana based on the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. The country of origin of yoga is undoubtedly India, but it is very difficult to give an exact period of its origin. Kathopanishad, Chedashvedara Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad has reference to yoga practices, but these cannot be said to be identical with the yoga of Patanjali. The estimated period of Yoga Sutra of Patanjali is somewhere in between the 200 BC and 300 AD. There is a common belief that sage Patanjali is the founder of yoga, but he has not introduced the term yoga or the science of its practices also. But it is actually an art that has been since the beginning of the Indian thought. We can see so many seals of yoga in the Indus Valley civilization period, the excavations from the Indus Valley civilization period also. But it is due to Patanjali that yoga is considered as one of the 6 major schools of thoughts from ancient India. For Patanjali, the philosophical and practical aspects of yoga are interdependent, and one is incomplete without the other. The term yoga is derived from the root yuj. Yuj means to unite, to yoke, to connect, to join. So, yoga presupposes a union or connection or joining. So, yoga is considered as the union of oneself with one's real self. In a wider sense, yoga aims the union of individual self or jivatma with the universal self or paramatma. In this sense, yoga in Indian philosophy can be considered as the liberation or salvation or the attainment of the perfection itself is yoga. So, in ancient Indian darshanas, there are 4 ways to attain the state of yoga or the state of perfection or kaivalya. That are karma, bhakti, jnana and dhyana. So, there are 4 kinds of yoga in ancient Indian philosophy, that are karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga and dhyana yoga. Karma yoga is actually the path of action. The path of action means through the path of action only one can attain the state of perfection or state of yoga. So here the Bhagavad Gita recommends the karma yoga mainly. Bhagavad Gita give more emphasis to karma yoga according to the concept of nishkama karma. That is, we do our duty, only concerned with the duty and unconcerned with the result or consequences. That is actually karma yoga. Then bhakti yoga is actually the path of devotion. Devotion, only through devotion one can attain the level of perfection or state of yoga through, according to the proponents of bhakti yoga. But jnana yoga is the path of knowledge. According to the jnana yogis or those who recommend jnana yoga, the problems of the world itself, almost all schools of Indian philosophy believes that ignorance is the root cause of all evils and suffering. So, only through the removal of ignorance one can remove the the sufferings and pains from this world. So the Jnana Yoga, according to Jnana Yoga, only through the attainment of knowledge one can remove the ignorance, and only through the removal of ignorance one can remove the whole sufferings and attain the state of perfection or the state of yoga. Then the fourth kind of yoga is Dhyana Yoga. Actually, Dhyana Yoga is the path of meditation. Dhyana Yoga is also known as Raja Yoga or Patanjala Yoga. In Raja Yoga, the liberation is attained through meditating on the object of meditation. Proper meditation enables ones to transcend the limits of karma. That karma is actually works as an ignorance in our perception. According to the Yoga Darshana of Patanjali, proper meditation takes one beyond the ego, sense, and leads to enlightenment through step-by-step practices or step-by-step meditative practices. Patanjali made this as this system as one among the major orthodox schools or Astika Darshanas of ancient Indian philosophy. Among the Shat Darshanas, Sankhya and Yoga are considered as paired systems or allied systems. Among the whole Shat Darshanas, the Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa, the Nyaya and Vaisheshika are considered as allied systems or paired systems. The Sankhya and Yoga are considered as allied or paired systems, and Mimamsa or Vedanta or the Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa is also considered as allied or paired systems. Nyaya is mainly focused on epistemology, and Vaisheshika is mainly focused on metaphysics. So the Nyaya and Vaisheshika mutually accept their epistemology and metaphysics, so they are considered as allied systems or paired systems. Like Nyaya Vaisheshika, the Sankhya Yoga is a complete system, and Sankhya mainly focused on theoretical part, or Sankhya is basically theoretical. Yoga is practical in its base, and mutually they accept their theory and practice later. So they are considered as allied or paired systems. So the theoretical background of yoga is actually the theory of Sankhya. So in Sankhya, Sankhya is a dualistic system. The primordial matter Prakriti and the pure consciousness Purusha are two major principles of the dualistic Sankhya Yoga system. The 24 categories of Sankhya includes Purusha, Prakriti, and the 23 evolutes of Prakriti. Here the Purusha, untouched by the evolutionary process in the Sankhya theory of evolution. He is only a witness, but the proximity of Purusha is only needed. Actually, Purusha is not directly take part in the evolutionary process, but the consciousness, the pure consciousness Purusha, the consciousness is the proximity of the consciousness is needed in this evolutionary process. So according to Sankhya, all these universe or objective world are evolved out of the material Prakriti. All this material world is already pre-existed in its material cause according to the Prakriti Parinamavada of Sankhya system, Sankhya Yoga philosophy. So the production means the manifestation or Avirbhava, and destruction means the concealment or the Tirobhava. Production is evolution, and the destruction is dissolution according to Sankhya Yoga theoretical metaphysics. So the highest aim of yoga also is to attain the highest consciousness Purusha. Purusha is considered as the pure self, or it is considered as the universal self or universal consciousness. So the aim of yoga is also the attainment of the pure consciousness Purusha. Sage Patanjali can be considered to made yoga as an independent darshana or philosophical school. Patanjali presents his literary form of yoga or the philosophical doctrines of yoga in his famous book Yoga Sutra. According to Yoga Sutra, the path of liberation is possible purely through personal effort. Patanjali Yoga Sutra is also known as the Raja Yoga is also. Patanjali Yoga Sutra recommended Raja Yoga actually. So this text composed of 196 sutras or aphorisms. Yoga Sutra divided into 4 chapters or 4 quarters known as padas. These 4 quarters are Samadhi Pada, Sadhana Pada, Vibhuti Pada and Kaivalya Pada. These are the 4 chapters or quarters of Yoga Sutra of Patanjali. Samadhi Pada is actually as usual, it is the introductory part, and this includes the exposition of meditation or the disciplines of yoga or the importance of the meditation. This chapter includes 55 sutras. The Sadhana Pada or the exposition of practice, it mainly includes the major sadhanas in Yoga Sutra or practices of yoga. This chapter consists of 51 sutras or aphorisms, and the third chapter or third quarter is known as Vibhuti Pada. This is the exposition of accomplishment or yogic siddhis or supernatural powers. That chapter includes 56 aphorisms or sutras, and last chapter or the last quarter is known as the Kaivalya Pada. This is actually the concluding portion, and this is the exposition of absolute isolation or recognizing the self or self-realization. This chapter includes 34 sutras or aphorisms. In Samadhi Pada, Patanjali defines yoga as yogas chittavritti nirodha. Actually, this is the sutra in the first chapter. Yoga is actually, this means the yoga is the cessation of the modification of the mind or restrainment of the modification of the mind. This sutra includes 3 parts: chitta, vritti and nirodha. Here the chitta in Patanjali Yoga Sutra refers to the triple concept of intellect, ego and mind. Chitta commonly translated as mind, but in Patanjali Yoga Sutra, chitta is actually the triple concept of intellect, ego and mind. So it is the functional state of the mind itself. Vritti is derived from the Sanskrit root vrid. Vrid means to exist. So vritti means the existence. So chitta vritti is the existence of the functional state of mind. That is the modification of the mind itself. Chittavritti can be translated as the modification of mind. So nirodha is the cessation or restrainment. So the sutra Chittavritti Nirodha means the cessation of the modification of mind or the restrainment of the modification of the mind. This is the perfect state of harmony of mind, body and spirit. For Patanjali, the modification of mind or chittavritti are of 5 kinds. The chittavrittis are in Patanjali Yoga Sutra are pramana, viparyaya, vigalpa, nidra, smrdayaha. There are pramana, viparyaya, vigalpa, nidra and smrti. Pramana is actually the right knowledge. The right knowledge through the 3 pramanas like perception, inference and verbal testimony. Then viparyaya is wrong knowledge. Then the vigalpa is actually the fanciful knowledge, and nidra is the knowledge at the time of sleep. And then smriti also, the knowledge of memory is also a chittavritti according to Patanjali. So there are 5 kinds of chittavritti, that are pramana, viparyaya, vigalpa, nidra and smriti. This modification or chittavritti will leads to kleshas according to the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali. There are 5 kinds of sufferings or kleshas according to Patanjali. That is kleshaha panchadaya, for which empirical self is subjected to. That are avidya, asmida, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, kleshaha. That is the sutra define the kleshas in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. In the second chapter, third sutra is avidya, asmida, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, kleshaha. That are avidya, asmida, raga, dvesha and abhinivesha are the kleshas. That is, avidya is ignorance. According to almost all Indian philosophy believes that ignorance is the root cause of all evils and sufferings. So for Patanjali also ignorance is the root cause. Then asmita is the sense of egoism. Raga is thirst for worldly pleasures, and dvesha is the repulsion or aversion, and abhinivesha is the clinging for attachment, for clinging to the attached world or clinging to the life. So there is a causal connection between all these kleshas. The first avidya is the root cause, and from avidya there emerged asmita or sense of egoism. From asmita or sense of egoism there emerged the raga and dvesha. From raga abhinivesha is emerged out of raga. So this there is a causal connection. So the 5 kinds of chittavritti leads to 5 kinds of kleshas. The freedom from worldly suffering can be achieved in Patanjali Yoga through 8 steps known as Ashtanga Yoga. According to Patanjali, only through the practice of 8 steps one can remove the chittavrittis, and thus one can remove all the kleshas from this world. So this can be considered as a most prominent ethical contribution of ancient India to the world. This Ashtanga Yoga can be considered as a most prominent ethical contribution to the world. So Ashtanga Yoga can be considered as a comprehensive package including all realms of human existence, or including all realms associated with the existence of human beings. So the various dimensions of human existence that are included in the practice of yoga are social, personal, physical, vital, mental and spiritual. So in the second chapter Sadhana Pada, the Patanjali defined the Ashtanga Yoga as Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhyo, Ashtangani. This is the sutra of the second chapter, Sadhana Pada, then the 29th sutra of the second Pada. There he defined the Yoga Sutra as Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi are the Ashtanga Yoga, or the 8 limbs of yoga. There the first 5, the Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama and Pratyahara are known as external preparations of yoga, or the external aid or external aids of yoga, that are self-restraint or Yama, Niyama or the self-discipline, Asana or bodily postures, Pranayama or control of breath, Pratyahara or introversion. These 5 are known as external preparations that are associated with the Bahir Anga or external limbs. So it is known as Bahir Anga sadhanas. The last 3 are known as Andaranga sadhana. It is related to the inner limbs that are known as the internal preparations of yoga. According to Patanjali, all these are preparations. All these are preparations for attainment of the perfect yoga. So the last 3, Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi, together known as Andaranga sadhana or internal preparations of the yoga. Among the first 5, the first 2 are known as ethical preparations. The Yama and Niyama are known as ethical preparations or social preparations, or it can be called as Dharmiga sadhanas. Among these, the first is Yama. It is concerned with the means of self-restraint. These are some self-restrictions. Yama consists in the 5 great vows are abstention from violence, falsehood, theft, incontinence and possessions, that are ahimsa or non-violence or to be free from violence, satya or non-stealing or to be free from theft, and asteya or satya or the truthfulness or to be free from falsehood, and asteya is non-stealing, that is to be free from theft, and brahmacharya is the celibacy or chastity, that is to be free from unchastity or uncelibacy, and abharigraha is actually non-possession or non-possessiveness, to be free from possession or possessiveness. These are the 5 great vows includes as yamas in the Ashtanga Yoga. Then next is niyama. The second limb of Ashtanga Yoga is niyama. That is, niyamas are considered as some do's. They are observance that one must adhere into in order to develop the individual values. That are shauja or cleanliness, santosha or contentment or satisfaction, then tapas or penance, then swadhyaya or self-study, and ishvara pranidhana or the self-surrenderance to the God. These niyamas are, we want to cultivate some, we should cultivate some values in our life. So these niyamas are, the first niyama is shauja, that is the internal and external cleanliness are known as shauja. And santosha means the contentment or satisfaction. It is not santosha or happiness, but it is contentment or satisfaction according to Patanjali. Then tapas is actually penance, or through tapas one can attain the resistance capacity of mind and body in the path of yoga. To resist all the obstacles in the path of yoga, one can practice, one should practice the tapas. Then swadhyaya is self-study or self-conviction of the truth from the religious texts or the philosophical text. That is swadhyaya. And ishvara pranidhana is the self-surrenderance to the God. Actually, this ishvara pranidhana is very important in yoga, because this concept separate Sankhya yoga from Sankhya. Sankhya Yoga is sometimes known as Seshwara Sankhya because of this aspect. Because Sankhya is actually silent on God, so they can consider it as an atheistic system. But Yoga is mentioned about God in this concept. So Yoga is also known as Seshwara Sankhya or theistic Sankhya. So this concept is very important. But here the concept of God, Patanjali is not mention or glorify any kind of God or Godhead or any kind of religious rituals or ceremonies of any kind of religion. So we can say that yoga is purely a secular one in this aspect. So asana, then the next is asana. The next limb in Yoga Sutra is asana. Asana is the steady and comfortable body postures. Actually, asana, the Patanjali define asana as stiram sukham asanam. Stiram sukham asanam means asanas are the steady and comfortable body postures. It is the preparation of body by adopting prescribed postures of body. That's in connection with that is in concentration and control of mind. The aim of asana is the concentration of the mind and steadiness of the body. So there are many types of postures, and their practices will help in development of both body and mind. It develops mental equilibrium also, and also helps in preventing the fickleness of the mind. So in a certain way, asanas helps in the manipulation of mind through the manipulation of body, or the control of the mind through the control of the body also. Pranayama can be considered as the fourth limb of Ashtanga Yoga, or the fourth component of the Ashtanga Yoga. Pranayama, or the breath control, is an important sadhana in the path of yoga according to Patanjali. Pranayama includes actually three stages, that are Puraga, or the inhalation or inhaling the breath, Kumbhaga, or retention or retaining the breath, and Rejaga, that is exhalation or exhaling the breath. So these are the three stages of pranayama, and the time taken for this is gradually increased through practices, and it helps to attain more and more concentration of mind. Emotional excitements actually affect the rate of breathing. Hence, deliberate regulation of breathing checks emotional excitements. That is the relevance or importance of pranayama, because all the emotional excitements affect our breathing. So we can check all the emotional excitements through the deliberate breathing. So pranayama is actually an important limb in the path of yoga. Actually, in Indian philosophy or ancient India, we can see Pancha Pranas, the concept of Pancha Pranas in Ayurveda and Yoga. That the Pancha Pranas are Udana, Prana, Samana, Abana and Vyana. So, the control or regulation of this Pancha Prana is very important in the development of our body and mind. Then the fifth limb or fifth component of the yogas, the Ashtanga Yoga is Pratyahara. Pratyahara is actually the process of introversion. This is the withdrawal of the mind from the external sensual stimulating world, or the withdrawal of the sense organs to the mind, and senses are shut against all the external sensual stimuli. This process of introversion makes one detached from the sensual world and helps cleaning the mind of all impurities. This helps the practitioner of yoga or sadhaka to increase his mastery over his senses and thereby cultivate vairagya or non-attachment or renunciation that is necessary for the practice of yoga. This vairagya is actually is derived from the root viraga. Viraga means there is no raga or attachment. It means it is not means that is only without raga, but without dvesha also. There is neither attachment nor aversion. That is the state of vairagya. Through pratyahara, one can cultivate this vairagya or renunciation in one's life. That is very important in the path of yoga. Then another stage is the next is actually the internal preparations of yoga or antaranga sadhana. The first the part of Vibhuti Pada or the third chapter, Patanjali give a detailed explanation about the three practices of yogic techniques, that are dharana, dhyana and samadhi. This dharana, dhyana and samadhi are together known as samyama. This is known as the stage of samyama. These three stages taken together as samyama, and through this practice all the mysteries of yogic life are revealed, and the practitioner or sadhaka can attain power of siddhis or vibhudis or supernatural powers. Siddhis are supernatural powers attained by yogi in the state of samadhi. So, in Vibhuti Pada we can see a detailed explanation regarding various kinds of siddhi. So, this pada itself is known as Vibhuti Pada. Vibhuti actually means the supernatural powers or siddhi. The dharana is actually the concentration, that is an act of confining mind within the object of concentration, or it is the act of fixing mind in the object of meditation alone. The object of concentration can be either internal or external. At this stage, the mind is withdrawn from all the other external world and attention is focused on the object of concentration alone. And in dhyana, actually this dharana, dhyana and samadhi are not separate practices. These are the three stages of the same practice or of the same internal yoga practice. The dhyana is actually a meditation. It is the uninterrupted flow of thoughts towards the object of concentration or object of meditation. The whole experience of the meditator at this stage is confined to the object of meditation alone. The thoughts are centered around it and knowledge about the object is being revealed in this stage. In this, the aspirant knows about the various aspects of the meditation. So, in last stage samadhi, etymologically samadhi means equal mind. It is the final stage in the Ashtanga Yoga. Etymologically samadhi is equal mind, because the sama means equal and dhi means the consciousness or mind. So Samadhi is a equal mind or equal consciousness. This is a stage of equal consciousness of the meditator and meditating object. Actually, in common, people believes that Samadhi is the end of life, or Samadhi means the liberation or salvation or Kaivalya. But according to Patanjali, the first stage of Samadhi is Sabija Samadhi only. This is not the level of Kaivalya. So it is the culmination of dhyana. Actually, the Samadhi is the culmination of dhyana, and in which the object of meditation, the meditator, the knowledge of meditation, all are fused together. So here consciousness of the object alone exists without the awareness of the subject. Here in this stage, the chitta or the consciousness of the meditator assumes the form of the object, the consciousness of the object, the consciousness of the object of meditation. That is the state of Samadhi. For Patanjali, the first stage of Samadhi is not the Kaivalya or the moksha or the attainment of the Purusha. In the first state, the Samadhi itself is defined by Patanjali as the Sabija Samadhi. Sabija Samadhi means there is a bija or a seed or some consciousness about the object of meditation. So we already mentioned that in the stage of Samadhi, the subject of meditation assumes the form of object of meditation. So there is a complete knowledge regarding the object of meditation is remain in that Samadhi stage itself. That is the seed or element, or this element is known as pratyaya. So Sabija Samadhi is the Samadhi with pratyaya or the content of consciousness. So we should remove all this content, because Patanjali defined yoga as chitta vritti nirodha. We should remove all the chitta vrittis or all the modification of mind. But here in the state of Sabija Samadhi, there is seed or pratyaya. So we should remove the chitta vritti, and then one can enter into the state of Nirbija Samadhi, and then one can enter into the state of Dharma Megha Samadhi. That is the Kaivalya, the stage of Kaivalya, and that is the final stage according to Patanjali. But in Sabija Samadhi to Nirbija Samadhi, there is various stages of Samadhi we can see in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Sabija Samadhi can also called as Sampratnyada Samadhi. This Sampratnyada Samadhi means, Sampratnyada means with pratnya or with consciousness. With consciousness means some consciousness of some elements or contents is there. Consciousness of something is there. So it is Sampratnyada Samadhi. In this stage, the Sampratnyada to Asampratnyada Samadhi, we should remove or we should eliminate some the modifications or some the non-perfection or some cleaning process should be needed there, and there remaining the chitta should overcome the limitations of the Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, Anandamaya Kosha, and individual self. So there is another levels of Samadhi that are Vitarka Samadhi, Vijara Samadhi, Sananda Samadhi, and Sasmida Samadhi. So to remove the mental layer or the Manomaya Kosha, to remove the modifications of Manomaya Kosha, one should pass Savitarka to Nirvitarka Samadhi, and to overcome the limitations of intellectual layer, one should the chitta should pass from Savijara Samadhi to Nirvijara Samadhi. Then the chitta can enjoy the bliss in Sa Ananda Samadhi, and then chitta can assumes the form of individual self in Sasmida Samadhi. Then chitta can enter into the level of asamprajnata samadhi. There is no prajna there in that time in chitta. Thus, the chitta can enter into the state of nirbija samadhi. Thus, the chitta can attain the level of dharma mekha samadhi, the highest stage. That is the state of pure consciousness purusha. That level is known as the kaivalya in Sankhya Yoga philosophy. So, in last pada or the last chapter, Kaivalya Pada, Patanjali expounds all those philosophical problems which are involved in the study and practice of yoga. The nature of mind and its mental perception, desire and its binding effect, liberation and the results following it are dealt with briefly but systematically in this last pada, that is the Kaivalya Pada. That's all. Thank you.